Soon we'll be asking you to decide who you think should be the last of our I Own Britain's Best Home finalists. But before then, Russell is discovering a wealth of inventive interior design at Graham's converted school home.
Graham's distinctive and creative approach to design is evident everywhere in this exceptional home. Even the cloakroom's colour scheme was inspired by this Hindu wall hanging. And you'd never guess, but the wallpaper is actually wrapping paper from a museum shop. Up on the mezzanine, the sleeping area is cleverly screened from view by salvaged Indian panelling painted by Graham. And there are plenty of other features in this home which have a former life elsewhere. I mean, take this spiral staircase for starters. Obviously, Graham needs to get access to his bedroom, which is on this mezzanine level. He needs to put a staircase in. He could have had one made, but not Graham, of course. He had this imported from France. It's from the 19th century, and it really does fit this house brilliantly well. But it's not just the big items that have a history here. Graham even has his cushions made up from antique fabrics. This spotted silk was once a Japanese kimono, and he fell for this intricate needlework on holiday in Morocco. There's just nothing mass-produced or ordinary about any part of this home. Just take a look at this. Graham has painted a piece of his own artwork on the back of the door, so when you're sat in this room, instead of looking at a grotty white door, you're looking at this wonderful piece of art that looks like it's propped up against the wall. Now that's what I call clever. Graham's own handiwork is clearly central to the success of this unique interior. He specialises in painted furniture inspired by the antique pieces he loves. This blue and white chest of drawers is decorated with an 18th century French dotted pattern, topped off with a blue marble effect, which Graham has then distressed to reveal the red oxide base coat below for an instant antique look. I'm eager to find out more about Graham's talents, so what better way to spend the afternoon than by enjoying the country air on a stroll up the road to see the studio where he designs and creates his bespoke painted pieces. So, what are you exactly, Graham? Are you an artist or a furniture restorer? How would you describe yourself?
I suppose starting off as an artist, and I've restored, painted things for things like the National Trust and so on. It's developed into becoming an interior decorator too.
So where do you get your inspiration from? I assume certain countries have influenced you, haven't they?
They have, yes. I'm not incredibly well travelled, but I've been to the countries I've wanted to go to, like India and Iran, and they're very inspiring because every country has a different style of working.
This piece that you're working on here, are you going to find a little space for it in your home?
I'm not sure. It's to find the room, really.
After such a fascinating day, what better way to unwind than with a glass of wine in front of the fire before bed? Don't honestly think I've ever slept in a schoolhouse before. And I haven't slept in a room with Kashmiri textiles on the walls. And I certainly haven't slept in a four-poster bed made by my host before. So I guess it's a day of firsts. And it's been quite an exhausting one at that. So if you don't mind, I'm going to get some sleep. Now, where's that light switch? After a restful night, I couldn't resist trying out Graham's magical bathroom, complete with a French 19th century roll-top bath. What a decadent way to start the day. Sadly, it's time for me to go, but staying here has been a real eye-opener. I think this place proves there really are no limits to how creative a home can be. What this series is all about is people who are passionate about their homes. And I have never met anyone quite as passionate about where they live as Graham. He has taken an old, unloved, disused school building and turned it into a truly unique place to live. Somewhere that reflects both his personality and the life that he's led. And for those reasons and many more, I urge you to please pick up your phone and give this house your vote.
Russell's been inspired by Graham's unique home, but will Melissa and Michael be equally moved?
Absolutely no question in my mind, that is the winner.
I loved his interior design, his use of texture, his use of colour, and the fact that every single object within that home had a story attached to it. That excited me.
That floor that he'd copied out of a Venetian Palazzo,
beautiful.
I loved it. I was just sitting there thinking, I want that, I want to copy that.
One of my only criticisms would be there's an awful lot of bits and bobs, knick-knacks and statues. How do you clean that?
You know, when you've got a beautiful home like that and you've filled it with fabulous objects, I imagine it's a pleasure to clean.
But is it really practical as a home? And it works for Graham. Would it work for anybody else? Is this Britain's best home?
You've heard from the experts, now it's your turn. Which property do you want to see in next week's final show for the chance to win £20,000 for charity? Earlier, Melissa Porter felt right at home in Sherry's family-friendly manor house.
This is a proper family home with real class.
Michael Holmes was impressed by Anne and Vincent's contemporary take on townhouse living.
People talk about trying to capture that sense of space and light. This house really pulls that off brilliantly well.
And finally, Russell Harris was bowled over by Graham's one-of-a-kind conversion of a Victorian school.
This is extraordinary. I don't know where to look first.
With all 8 heats now wrapped up, next week Melissa, Russell and Michael will announce the overall winner of I Own Britain's Best Home 2009.